Let me see what you can do.
Yeah.
I have only $5.
The millionaire slid $15 across the table for a $200 meal, looked Ruby right in the eyes, and said 5 words that would haunt her for weeks. Let me see who you are. Her hands froze. The restaurant went silent in her head. Everything she had been through, every struggle, every sleepless night, every choice between her daughter's medicine and food, all of it came crashing down into this single moment. This man in his $1,000 suit was turning her life into a game, a test, like she was some kind of lab rat. And the worst part, he was smiling, not a cruel smile, not a mocking smile, but a smile that said he knew exactly what he was doing. That he had done this before, that he was waiting to see if she would break. Ruby stood there with the cash in her hand, her feet screaming in shoes held together with tape, and she had a choice. She could curse him out. She could throw the money back in his face. She could make a scene. She could do what 11 other people had already done to this man, or she could do something else, something that would change both of their lives forever. But before I tell you what she did, listen to me carefully. Whatever you are doing right now, I need you to stop. Cancel your plans for the next few minutes, because what happens next is not just a story. It is a lesson about dignity, about worth, about how one moment of grace can turn $15 into 40 million. And if you stick around until the end, I promise you will never look at money, at rich people, or at your own value the same way again. You will understand why sometimes the cruelest tests reveal the most beautiful truths, and you will see why what this waitress did in the next 60 seconds rewrote a millionaire's entire will. Hit that like button right now if you are ready for a story that will mess with your head and heal your heart at the same time, and drop a comment telling me what you would have done in her position. Would you have kept calm, or would you have reacted? Be honest. Because this story is about to show you what real strength looks like. Now let me take you back to that moment, back to Los Angeles, back to a diner that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams, back to Ruby, 25 years old, feet aching, heart pounding, staring at $15 that felt like a slap across her face. She looked the old man straight in the eye. "Thank you, sir," she said. Her voice did not shake, her hands did not tremble. "I hope you enjoyed your meal." Then she walked away. Just like that, no yelling, no tears, no anger, just grace. The old man, whose name was Leonard Phillip, sat very still. He had done this 12 times before in 12 different restaurants across the city, 12 waiters and waitresses, 12 tests. 11 of them had cursed him. One had thrown water in his face. One had called him names that would make a sailor blush. One had quit on the spot and stormed out. He wrote their reactions in a small leather notebook he kept in his jacket pocket. He was dying, you see, cancer, 6 months, maybe less, and he had $40 million with no children, no wife, no family, just money, mountains of it, and a question that kept him awake at night, that burned in his chest like the disease eating him from the inside. Who deserves it? Not who needs it. Everyone needs money. Need is easy, need is everywhere, but deserve, that was different, that required something else. Something Leonard had been searching for his whole life and never found. Humanity, real humanity, the kind that does not break when the world tries to crush it. Leonard had made his fortune in real estate. He bought buildings when people were desperate and sold them when people were hungry. He knew how to spot weakness, how to exploit it, how to turn suffering into profit. He was not kind. He knew this about himself. His wife had left him 20 years ago because she said he had forgotten how to see people as people. He had turned everyone into numbers, into transactions, into things he could use. She died last year, heart attack. He did not cry at her funeral. He wondered if that made him a monster. He wondered if it was too late to become human again. Now, with death breathing down his neck, with time running out like sand through his fingers, he was trying to find one person, just one, someone who could stay human when the world gave them every reason not to. Someone who could be treated like dirt and still stand up clean. Someone who could prove to him that he had not wasted his entire life being the person he was. Ruby walked back to the kitchen. Her heart was hammering, but her face was calm. Her co-worker, a woman named B who had worked at the diner for 30 years, looked at her with knowing eyes. "Bad tip." $15, Ruby said, $200 bill. B whistled low. That is cold, that is ice cold, you okay? Ruby shrugged. She had learned not to waste energy on anger. Anger was expensive. Anger meant you cared what cruel people thought of you, and caring gave them power, power she could not afford to give away. My feet hurt, she said instead. How many more hours? 2, then you are free. Free? Ruby almost laughed. She had not been free since she was 17 and got pregnant, since the baby's father ran, since her mama got sick and the hospital bills ate everything, since she dropped out of school to work, since freedom became just another word people used for something she would never have. But she had Joy, her daughter, 8 years old, smart as lightning, funny as sunshine. Joy had asthma. The medicine cost $160 every month. Insurance did not cover it. The government said they made too much money to qualify for help. Too much money. Ruby worked 70 hours a week and still chose between medicine and food, still chose between keeping the lights on and keeping her daughter breathing. She thought about the $15 in her pocket. It would buy groceries, rice, beans, maybe chicken if it was on sale, maybe some fruit if Joy asked nicely enough. Maybe. She did not think about the man in the corner booths. But Leonard thought about her. He sat there for another hour watching her work. She moved through the diner like water, smooth and steady. She smiled at every customer even when they snapped their fingers at her like she was a dog. She cleaned tables that were not hers. She helped the cook when the rush hit. She refilled coffee without being asked. She remembered orders without writing them down. She never complained, never rolled her eyes, never let the mask slip. Leonard had been studying people his whole life. You did not get rich without learning how to read faces, voices, the tiny tells that showed you who someone really was. He could spot a liar from across a room. He could see greed in someone's eyes before they even knew it was there. He had built an empire on understanding human weakness. And Ruby's face told him something he had not seen in a long time. Dignity. Not pride. Pride was easy. Pride was what people wore when they had something to prove. Pride was loud and defensive and fragile. Dignity was different. Dignity was quiet. Dignity was what you had left when everything else was taken away, when you had nothing to prove because you knew your worth without anyone else telling you. He left before she finished her shift. He did not leave another tip. He wanted to see if she would mention it to anyone, if she would complain, if the grace would crack. It did not. Ruby got home at midnight. Their apartment was small, 1 bedroom in a building that smelled like mold and disappointment. The hallways were dark. The elevator did not work. The neighbors fought through thin walls, but it was home. It was safe. It was theirs. Joy was asleep on the couch. The babysitter, a teenager from downstairs, was watching videos on her phone. She had trouble breathing around 9, the girl said. I gave her the inhaler. Ruby's heart clenched. Her chest got tight. Her hands started to shake. How many pumps left? Maybe 3 days worth. 3 days. The prescription could not be refilled for another week. Insurance rules. Ruby handed the babysitter $20, which left her with $43 until Friday. Rent was $400, due Tuesday, 3 days away. She picked Joy up gently. Her daughter barely weighed anything, all bird bones and big eyes. Ruby carried her to the bedroom, tucked her in, and sat watching her breathe. In and out, the most beautiful sound in the world, the most terrifying sound in the world, because every breath could be the one that did not come easy. Every breath reminded Ruby that her daughter's life depended on medicine she could barely afford. Ruby did not cry. She had learned that too. Crying was expensive. Crying took energy she needed for working, for standing, for smiling at customers who treated her like she was invisible. But she wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. She wanted to find that man in his expensive suit and ask him what it felt like to play with people's lives like they were toys. What it felt like to have so much money that you could throw it away just to see how people would react. But she did not, because dignity meant holding onto yourself even when no one was watching, even when you had every right to fall apart. The next morning, Leonard sat in his lawyer's office. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine who had worked for him for 20 years, looked concerned. She had watched Leonard change over the past few months, watched him become obsessed with this idea of finding someone worthy of his fortune, watched him test people like they were products he was thinking about buying. "You want a what?" she said. "Change my will again. Leonard, this is the fourth time this month. You cannot keep doing this. It is my money. It is my job to make sure you are thinking clearly, and I am not sure you are." Leonard smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I am dying, Catherine. I am thinking clearer than I ever have in my life." He told her about the test, the $15, Ruby's face, the way she walked away without breaking. Catherine sighed. She had known Leonard for 2 decades. She had watched him build his empire, watched him destroy his marriage, watched him turn into someone who could not connect with other humans, and now, at the end, she was watching him search for something he might never find. "So you want to leave everything to a waitress you met once because she did not curse you?" "No," Leonard said slowly. "I want to watch her for a while longer, see if she is real." "Real?" "See if the dignity holds, or if it is just an act. See if she stays human, or if the pressure breaks her like it breaks everyone else." Catherine shook her head. "You are playing God, Leonard." "God is busy," he said. "Someone has to do it." For the next 2 weeks, Leonard became a regular at the diner. He came every day at different times. Morning, lunch, dinner. He watched Ruby work. He never sat in her section. He tipped other servers well and treated them kindly. He wanted to see how Ruby reacted when good things happened to other people but not to her. He wanted to see if the grace was real or if it was just survival. She smiled, genuinely. When Bea got a $50 tip from a young couple, Ruby hugged her and laughed like it was her own money, like she was not struggling, like she was not drowning. When the new server, a kid fresh out of high school, dropped a tray of food, Ruby helped him clean it up and told him everyone messes up on their first week. When the manager yelled at her for being 2 minutes late because the bus broke down, she apologized without excuses, without defending herself, without blaming the broken bus system or her life or anything else. Leonard took notes. He began to see the shape of her life, the taped shoes that she tried to hide by walking carefully, the same 2 pairs of pants she rotated through the week, the way she ate the leftover food from plates before they went into the trash, quick bites when she thought no one was looking, the phone calls she took in the back alley, her voice tight with worry. He heard her once talking to someone about medicine, about a daughter, about money she did not have, about choices no mother should have to make. He could have helped right then, just walked over and handed her a check. $40 million could solve every problem she had, could give her daughter a lifetime of medicine, could give Ruby a lifetime of not having to choose. But Leonard had learned something about money. It changed people. Sometimes it showed you who they really were. Sometimes it made them into something else entirely. He had seen it 1,000 times. People who were kind when they were poor became cruel when they were rich. People who were humble became entitled. People who cared about others became obsessed with themselves. He needed to know which one Ruby was. On the 15th day, he sat in her section. Ruby approached with her usual smile, but he saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, wariness, maybe even fear. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you?" "The truth," Leonard said. Ruby blinked. "Sir. Why did you not say anything that night, the $15 tip?" She was quiet for a moment. Leonard watched her face carefully. He saw her shoulders square, her chin lift, her eyes harden just slightly. "It is not my job to tell people how to spend their money," she said finally. "You paid for your meal, the rest was your choice." Even though it was insulting. "Insults only work if you give them power," Ruby said. Her voice was steady, strong. "I do not give my power away anymore." Leonard felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 20 years. "How old are you?" 25. "You are very wise for 25. Ruby smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I grew up fast, sir. Can I get you something to eat?" He ordered soup. She brought it promptly, perfectly prepared, with extra crackers without him asking. She checked on him 3 times without being intrusive. When he paid, he left exactly 15%, not a penny more. Ruby took the money without reaction. That night Leonard went home to his enormous house in the hills. It was full of expensive things he did not care about, paintings he never looked at, furniture no one sat on, rooms no one entered. He walked through it like a museum of his own loneliness. Each room echoed. Each step reminded him that he had everything and nothing at the same time. He thought about Ruby in her tiny apartment with her sick daughter. He thought about her taped shoes and her quiet dignity. He thought about his wife's voice, 20 years ago, telling him he had forgotten how to see people as people. Maybe he thought he had been blind his whole life. Maybe the test was never about Ruby at all. Maybe it was about him. Maybe he was the one being tested. Maybe he had been failing for 40 years and never knew it. The next day he did not go to the diner. Instead, he went to the hospital where his doctor worked. There was a pharmacy attached. He asked questions. He learned about asthma medicine, about insurance gaps, about the families who had to choose between breathing and eating, about mothers who worked themselves to death trying to keep their children alive, about a system that was supposed to help but mostly just crushed people who were already broken. Then he made some phone calls, a lot of phone calls. He used connections he had not used in years. He pulled strings he did not know he could still pull. Ruby's phone rang on her break 2 days later. Unknown number. She almost did not answer. Unknown numbers usually meant bills, meant collection agencies, meant more problems she could not afford. Hello. Is this Ruby? A woman's voice, professional, kind. Yes. This is Valley Mercy Pharmacy. I am calling about your daughter's prescription. We show a balance of $160 due in 4 days. Ruby's stomach dropped. Her chest got tight. Yes, I know, I am working on it. I will have it by Thursday, I promise. Please do not cancel the prescription. Well, we wanted to let you know that your account has been paid in full, not just this month. For the next 5 years, you are all set. The world tilted. Ruby grabbed the wall to steady herself. Her legs went weak, her vision blurred. What, how's, who? The donor wished to remain anonymous, but they also set up a fund for any additional medical expenses your daughter might have. A nurse coordinator will be reaching out to help you navigate insurance and care options. You will also receive information about an asthma specialist who will see your daughter for free. Ruby could not speak. Her throat was closed. Her eyes burned. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Miss, are you there? Yes, Ruby whispered. I am here, thank you so much. She hung up and pressed her hands to her face. She thought about crying, but the tears would not come. It felt too big, too impossible, like a dream that would vanish if she moved too fast, like someone would call back and say it was a mistake, that they had the wrong person, that someone like her did not get this kind of luck. She thought about the man in the corner booth, the $15, the tests. She wondered. That evening Leonard came back. He sat in Ruby's section. She approached slowly, her eyes searching his face. Her hands were shaking slightly. Was it you? She asked quietly. Leonard looked up from his menu. His face gave nothing away. Was what me? The medicine, the fund, someone paid for 5 years. Someone set up a specialist. Someone gave my daughter a future. I do not know what you are talking about, Leonard said, but his eyes were soft, gentle, human. Perhaps you should accept good fortune when it comes. Ruby stood there, trembling, fighting tears, fighting the urge to collapse right there in the middle of the diner. Why? Why what? Why would anyone do that? Leonard set down his menu. He looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her, saw her. Maybe because the world has people in it who see other people, really see them. And maybe one of those people noticed that you work harder than anyone else, that you are kind when kindness costs you, that you stand tall when the world tries to make you small. He paused. His voice got quieter, softer. Maybe that person thought you deserved to breathe easier, you and your daughter. Ruby sat down in the booth across from him. She knew she could get fired for sitting with a customer. She did not care. Nothing mattered except understanding what was happening. I do not understand, she said. You tested me, You gave me $15 like I was nothing, like I was some kind of experiment. I did, Leonard said, and it was the cruelest thing I have done in a very cruel life. Then why? Because I am dying, Leonard said simply, his voice cracked slightly, and I needed to know if there were still people in the world worth dying for, worth leaving something to, worth believing in. Ruby stared at him, really looked at him for the first time, saw past the expensive suit, past the money, saw a lonely old man who was terrified of dying alone, who was searching for meaning in a life that had none. I do not want your money, she said. I know, Leonard said, that is why you are getting it. He pulled out a folder from his bag. Inside were papers, legal papers. Ruby saw her name at the top, saw numbers that made her head spin, saw words like trust fund and beneficiary and estate. I do not understand, she said again. Her voice was barely a whisper. I have no family, Leonard said, $40 million and no one to leave it to. I have spent the last 2 months testing people, looking for someone who could handle that kind of money without becoming what I became, without losing themselves. And you picked me because I did not yell at you. No, Leonard said gently. I picked you because when I treated you like you were worthless, you still treated yourself like you had worth. Because when I tried to take your dignity, you held onto it like a lifeline, because you are what I should have been and never was. Ruby's hands shook, tears finally broke through, ran down her face. This is not real, this does not happen to people like me. It does now, Leonard said, but there are conditions. Ruby's heart sank. Of course there were always conditions. What do you want? You have to go to school, get your degree, whatever you want to study, the money will pay for it. I have a daughter. The money will cover childcare, the best childcare in Los Angeles, and a real apartment, not the place you are in now, something safe, something bright, something where your daughter can breathe easy. His voice got even softer. And her medical care, everything, forever, she will never have to worry about medicine again. Ruby felt tears finally break through. Why are you doing this? Leonard looked out the window at the Los Angeles traffic, at the city that had made him rich and empty and alone. My wife told me once that I had forgotten how to be human. I think she was right, but you never forgot, even when the world gave you every excuse to, even when people like me tried to make you small. He turned back to her, his eyes were wet. I cannot fix my life, but maybe I can help you build yours. Maybe I can die knowing I did one thing right, one real thing. I do not know what to say. Say you will think about it, Leonard said. Say you will consider letting an old man try to do one good thing before he runs out of time. Ruby wiped her eyes. She thought about Joy, about her breathing, about the future that had always felt like a locked door, about dignity and worth and the strange paths life took. Okay, she said, I will think about it. Leonard smiled. It was the first real smile Ruby had ever seen on his face. He looked younger, almost happy, almost at peace. Thank you, he said. They sat there for a moment, a dying millionaire and a waitress with taped shoes, while Los Angeles hummed outside and the diner smelled of coffee and possibility. But the story does not end there, because life is never that simple, because money changes everything, because tests never really end. Ruby went home that night in a daze. She held the folder but did not open it. It felt too heavy, too big, too much like a trap. She had learned that when things seemed too good to be true, they usually were. She had learned that nothing came for free, that every gift had strings attached. Joy was awake when she got home, wheezing slightly. Mama, she said, I need my inhaler. Ruby gave it to her, 3 pumps left, but now there would be more, 5 years worth, maybe forever. She watched her daughter breathe easier and felt something break and heal inside her at the same time. Mama, why are you crying? Because I am happy, Ruby said. Happy looks sad on you. Ruby laughed through her tears, pulled her daughter close. Sometimes they are the same thing, baby. Sometimes the best things in life scare you because you are afraid to lose them. Are we going to lose something? No, baby, we are going to gain something, maybe everything. The next morning, Ruby opened the folder. Inside were documents that made her head spin: trust funds, investment accounts, property deeds, stock portfolios, numbers with so many zeros she had to count them twice to believe they were real. And a letter, handwritten, from Leonard. "Dear Ruby," it read, "I have made many mistakes in my life. I have hurt people. I have chosen money over kindness, power over love, winning over connection. I have forgotten birthdays and anniversaries. I have missed funerals because I was too busy making deals. I have looked at people and seen only what they could do for me. I cannot take any of it back, but I can try to make sure that one person who deserves better gets better. You do not have to accept this. You do not owe me anything, but if you do accept it, I have one request. Pay attention to who you become. Money changes people. I have seen it 1,000 times. I have watched kind people turn cruel, watched humble people turn proud, watched honest people turn into liars, but I do not think it will change you. I think you will stay exactly who you are, just with better shoes and a daughter who can breathe. Prove me right. Show me that I did not waste my whole life being the person I was. Show me that there are still people in the world who can have everything and still stay human. That is all I ask. That is my last test. And unlike the $15, this one I hope you pass by not passing at all, by staying Ruby, by staying you. With hope, Leonard Phillip." She read it 3 times. Then she called the number on the business card Catherine had included. Over the next month, Ruby's life transformed in ways that felt like fiction. The lawyer helped her navigate everything. They moved to a real apartment, 3 bedrooms, in a safe neighborhood with good schools, windows that let in light, walls that did not smell like mold, a kitchen where she could cook real meals, a bedroom for Joy with posters on the walls and toys on the floor. Joy got an asthma specialist, the best in-laws angels. The attacks became rare. Her daughters smiled more, laughed louder, ran without fear. Ruby watched her play in a park without worrying that every breath might be the last easy one. It felt like magic. It felt like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. Ruby enrolled in community college, business administration. She wanted to understand money, how it worked, so she could use it right, so she could make sure that other people like her old self, could have chances too. She wanted to learn how to turn 40 million into something that mattered, into something that could help more than just her and Joy. Leonard came to visit once a week. They had dinner together, usually at small restaurants where no one knew who he was or how much money he had. They talked about everything. Ruby told him about Joy, about her dreams, about the life she was building, about how strange it felt to not worry about money every single second, about how she sometimes woke up in panic thinking it was all fake. Leonard told her about his regrets, about his wife, about the person he wished he had been, about the decades he wasted chasing money instead of meaning. "Do you think she would have forgiven you?" Ruby asked once. "Your wife?" Leonard was quiet for a long time. He stared at his food. "No," he said finally, "I do not think she would have. I do not think I deserve forgiveness." "Everyone deserves forgiveness," Ruby said. "Even people who test waitresses with $15. Ruby smiled. "Even them, if they learn, if they change, if they try to be better." "Did I learn?" "You are here, are you not, eating cheap noodles with me instead of being alone in your big house. I think you learned something." Leonard reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was papery and thin. He was fatting. They both knew it. The cancer was winning. Time was running out like sand through an hourglass. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For being the person I needed to find. For showing me it was not too late. For letting an old fool try to be human one more time before he goes." Ruby squeezed his hand. "Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. Not many people do. Most people look right through me like I am invisible, but you saw me, even when you were testing me, maybe especially when you were testing me." "I wish I had more time," Leonard said. "I wish I could see what you build, see who Joy becomes, see if I was right about you." "You were right," Ruby said. "I promise I will not let you down." 3 months after their first meeting, Leonard died, peacefully in his sleep in his big empty house. Ruby got the call from Catherine. She sat on her new couch in her new apartment and cried for a man she had known for such a short time, but who had changed everything, who had given her and Joy a future, who had believed in her when no one else did. The funeral was small. Catherine, a few distant cousins who barely knew Leonard, business associates who talked about his success but not about him as a person, and Ruby, holding Joy's hand, standing in the back. The priest talked about Leonard's success, his business acumen, his wealth, the usual things people say at funerals of rich people, but when it was time for people to speak, no one stood up. No one had stories to tell. No one had memories to share. Leonard had died alone in every way that mattered. Ruby could not let that stand. She stood up slowly. Joy squeezed her hand. People turned to look at her confused. Who was this woman? Why was she speaking? I did not know Leonard Philip for very long, she said, her voice shook. But I knew him when it mattered. I knew him when he was trying to figure out if he had wasted his whole life. And I want to tell you something, he did not waste it. Because at the end he chose to see people, he chose to help, he chose to be kind, and that counts. That counts more than all the money or buildings or success. He gave my daughter a chance to breathe. He gave me a chance to dream. He gave himself a chance to be human, and that is not a wasted life. That is a life that mattered. She sat down, Joy hugged her. Catherine smiled through tears. The business associates looked uncomfortable. The distant cousins looked confused, but Ruby did not care. She had told the truth, and Leonard deserved that much. After the service, Catherine pulled Ruby aside. There is one more thing, she said. Leonard left you something else, not money, a letter. He wrote it the day before he died. Ruby took the envelope with shaking hands. She did not open it until she got home, until Joy was asleep, until she could be alone with his last words. Dear Ruby, it read, if you are reading this, I am gone. Good, I was ready, I was tired, I was done being afraid. But before I go, I want to tell you what you gave me. You gave me proof. Proof that I was wrong about the world. Proof that there are still people who stay good when the world tries to make them bitter. Proof that dignity cannot be bought or sold or tested away. You passed every test I gave you, but more than that, you made me realize the tests were stupid. You were never the one being tested. I was, and I failed for most of my life. But at the end, because of you, I passed. I learned to see people. I learned that money means nothing if you have no one to share it with. I learned that $15 can teach you more than 40 million if you pay attention. Take care of Joy, take care of yourself, build something beautiful with what I gave you, and remember that you did not get this because you were lucky. You got this because you were you. That was always enough. That was always more than enough. Thank you for teaching an old dog new tricks. Thank you for being patient with someone who did not deserve patience. Thank you for letting me die knowing I did one good thing, one real thing. You are my legacy, not the buildings or the money. You, the person who stayed human when everyone else forgot how. Be well, Ruby, live big, love hard, and never let anyone make you feel small ever again. You are worth more than all the money in the world. I hope you finally believe that. With gratitude and love, Leonard Philip. Ruby folded the letter carefully. She put it in a box with Joy's first shoes and the acceptance letter to community college and all the things that mattered most. She thought about the $15, about the test, about the strange path that had brought her here. And she understood something Leonard had known all along. Sometimes the smallest moments change everything. Sometimes a cruel test becomes a gift. Sometimes the people who seem like your enemies are really showing you who you are. Ruby graduated with honors 3 years later. She opened a foundation with Leonard's money. It helped single parents pay for medicine, for childcare, for education. It gave people chances they would never have otherwise. Every person who came through the doors was treated with dignity, with respect, with the understanding that they were not charity cases, but humans who deserved better. She named it the $15 Fund. People asked her about the name all the time. She told them it was a reminder that worth cannot be measured in tips or tests or money, a reminder that dignity is what you give yourself, not what others hand you, a reminder that sometimes the hardest tests have nothing to do with the person being tested. Sometimes the tests are about the tester. Joy grew up healthy and strong. She became a doctor, specializing in children with asthma. She treated every patient like they mattered, like they were worth seeing, like they deserved to breathe easy. She remembered what it felt like to struggle for air. She remembered her mother's face when the medicine ran out, and she made sure no child ever had to feel that way if she could help it. And sometimes, late at night, Ruby would take out Leonard's letter and read it again. She would think about the old man in the corner booth who tried to buy her dignity with $15, who learned that some things cannot be bought or sold or tested away. She would think about how close she came to cursing him, to throwing the money back, to letting his cruelty make her cruel. She would think about how glad she was that she did not. Because in the end, Leonard was right. The test was never about the tip. It was never about passing or failing. It was about staying human when the world gave you every reason not to. It was about holding on to your worth when everyone else tried to take it. And Ruby had passed, not because she was perfect, not because she was strong, but because she understood something that Leonard spent his whole life learning. Your worth is not in what people give you or take from you. Your worth is in who you choose to be when no one is watching, when no one is testing, when all you have is yourself and the choice to stand tall or fall down. Ruby chose to stand. And that choice, that simple choice to walk away with grace instead of anger, that choice to stay human when treated like less than human, that choice rewrote everything. It rewrote Leonard's will. It rewrote Ruby's future. It rewrote what both of them believed about worth and dignity, and the strange ways broken people can heal each other if they just pay attention. The $15 became 40 million. But more than that, it became proof. Proof that sometimes the smallest acts of grace have the biggest consequences. Proof that staying true to yourself matters more than fighting back. Proof that tests reveal more about the tester than the tested. And proof that even at the end, even when you think you have wasted everything, you can still choose to see people. Really see them. And in seeing them, you might finally see yourself. That is what Leonard learned from Ruby. That is what Ruby already knew, but needed someone else to see. That is what the $15 bought. Not a tip, not a test, but a chance for both of them. To be human, to be seen, to be worth something that could not be measured in money. And in a world that measures everything in dollars and cents, that might be the most valuable lesson of all. Ruby still works sometimes, not because she has to, because she wants to. She picks up shifts at diners when they are short-staffed. She remembers what it feels like to have tired feet and empty pockets and a daughter who needs medicine. She remembers because forgetting would be the real failure. Forgetting would mean the money had changed her after all. She remembers because dignity is not something you have once and keep forever. It is something you choose. Every single day. Every single moment. Every single time someone hands you $15 and expects you to break. Ruby does not break. She bends, she flexes, she survives. But she does not break. And that, in the end, is worth more than $40 million. That is worth everything. Now listen, if this story touched you, if it made you think differently about money or worth or how you treat people, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now, not later, right now, because that tells me this story mattered, that it meant something, that $15 and 40 million and one waitress's dignity was worth your time. And drop a comment below telling me this. Have you ever been tested like Ruby? Have you ever had someone try to measure your worth? How did you respond? Did you stand tall or did you break? Be honest. Because every one of us gets tested, every day, by life, by people, by circumstances we did not choose. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who is struggling, someone who feels small, share this video with them. Send it to them right now. Because maybe they need to know that dignity cannot be bought or sold, that worth comes from inside, that sometimes the cruelest moments lead to the most beautiful endings. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this. Real stories, human stories, stories about people who stay human when the world tries to make them into something less. And remember, Ruby, Next time someone tries to make you feel small, remember that you get to choose how you respond. You get to choose whether you break or bend. You get to choose your dignity. No one can take that from you unless you let them. Not for $15, not for 15 million. Your worth is yours. Now go out there and prove it.